Welcome to Chapter 4, Taking Notes. Some of the material in this chapter is more geared towards sitting in a lecture hall and taking notes in class. I know that stuff might not be that relevant now, but hopefully it will be relevant in the future at some point when we get back to face-to-face learning. Okay, so by the end of this chapter, chapter 4, you will be able to describe how to prepare and take notes in class, identify the characteristics of effective note taking, demonstrate the various methods of note taking. We're going to go through making outlines, the Cornell method, concept mapping, as well as using notes on PowerPoints. And then you need to demonstrate how to take study notes, which are created to review for exams and tests. Okay, so surprise, surprise, here is the POWER acronym once more. You've seen it in previous chapters. You will continue to see it. So the first step is to consider your goals. Is this taking notes for an assignment? Is it for an exam? Or are you simply just taking notes in a lecture? Once you have considered your goals, get the tools of note taking together, pens, pencils, highlighters, rulers, whatever you like to use. Make sure that you have that all within arm's reach. Process, just don't copy. That's the work step. Just don't sit there and mindlessly copy. Kind of change the information. Use shorthands, draw diagrams. The more you can make the information yours, the better chance you have of remembering it. And think critically about your notes. Maybe look back, and if you do really well in an exam, maybe it's because you took very good notes. And if you didn't do too well, maybe because your notes weren't very hot. So definitely look back at your notes critically. I know that when I was in university, I wasn't always the best at note taking. So sometimes I would ask to borrow my friends' notes, compare notes. We make notes together. That often helps if you think that you're missing information and you don't perform well on assessments, or at least perform as well as you want to. And then rethink, review your notes shortly after you're in class, because that does help move the material from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So just don't write notes, pop them in a binder and forget about them. Make sure that you open the binder up and then you do review your notes. Okay, so prepare, consider your goals. Consider your goals. Identify the instructors and your own goals for the class. Identify your instructors' goals for each class, identify your goals for the course, and then complete readings and assignments before class. So that's a really good tip there. I think the winning strategy here, if you do everything perfectly, would be to read the chapters before we jump into the material. That way you have some background information, and then when you're hearing it through the lecture or in class, it's really helping solidify some of that information. Be willing to make suggestions to your instructor if you need help, or that there's some way that it could enhance your note taking. Make sure that you send an email. I know that in several classes you're asked for feedback each semester. Please, please, please complete that feedback, because it is very useful. And sometimes it's hard being on the instructor side, because although we intend for something to come across in one way, it might come across in another, and it might make it easier for you to learn if things are presented maybe in a different fashion. Having said that, you should accept the instructor's teaching style, because listen, we've all had different teachers, some that we really connect with, other ones we don't. And just like people, they're all different. Perform a pre-class warm-up. So this is something like reading before, going over some headings, knowing what you're going to jump into in class, because then you might be better poised to participate, ask questions, and really be more of an active learner versus just sitting back and letting the material or the notes or the PowerPoints or the videos kind of play in a passive manner. And again, this is more towards if we're in class, but choose a seat that will provide good note taking, right? Try to sit way back corner where you can't really see the screen, or ask questions or be engaged. So once we prepare, we're going to move on to organize, and this is times where you get all the tools together. And if you prefer to be old school, I guess I am. I like to write things out with a pen and use a highlighter. or if you are new school and you like to use the technology, make sure you have that ready. So here's some old school things. Choose an appropriate writing utensil. Choose a notebook that assists in note taking. Consider the benefits of taking your textbook or having access to an e-text while you're in class. And then consider the pros and cons of using a laptop, right? Some people argue that maybe a pen and paper is better because you physically having to write out the material helps you learn it. Where if you're tapping away at a keyboard, you might not learn that information as well. But if you are a new school person and you do like using technology and it works for you, go for it. Do whatever works for you, whatever helps your learning. Part of this course is helping you understand what type of learner you are and what strategies are going to work for you moving forward. Okay, so we are prepared, we are organized. Now it is time to do the work. Just don't copy. Make sure you do summarize the information. There's no sense copying out 30 pages of your textbook, right? You might as well just read the textbook. The goal is to make your studying more effective and more efficient. And you do this by summarizing the information. And maybe you turn 30 pages of your textbook into 5 pages, which will make it a lot easier when it comes time to study for tests and exams. Okay, just don't copy. Successful note-taking involves not just hearing what is being said, but listen actively. Listen to the key ideas. Be on the lookout for nonverbal cues when you are in class. Use short form, right? Try not to write out all the sentences. You'll very quickly fall behind. And use abbreviations, absolutely. Active listening also involves maybe using your phone to take pictures of, maybe PowerPoint slides that are not shared through Blackboard or another, online portal. Pay particular attention to the points raised by the instructor at the end of class. They'll often, at the beginning and end of class, go through what are the key learning outcomes, so make sure you pay attention to those. And always ask questions if you need further clarification or if you don't understand something. Absolutely, that's a big point. Okay, note taking during class. And like I said, some of this may not be as applicable that we're not doing things face to face and that you do have the benefit of playing recordings over again, rewinding things. But still, I do think there's some valuable points in this section. So note taking during class, the outline form, the Cornell method, the concept mapping, and a PowerPoint handout method. So here are 4 methods. If some of these work for you, that is awesome. Maybe you're already using some of them. And there are also a couple more that we might touch on during our time together here. So the outline method is pretty straightforward. You're simply going to take the headings of the sections in your textbook and you're going to essentially just do bullet points of the main points within each heading and then provide maybe a summary at the end. So you start on page 1, you go to page 30, and as you're going through, you're writing out the headings in a couple points below each heading. The Cornell method is used for dividing the material up a little bit better. Some people do this more of an in-class note-taking style as opposed to a textbook, but whatever works for you. So on the left-hand side, you're going to put the main ideas and maybe questions and diagrams. That's the yellow section. In the turquoise section, that's where your notes are going to go. And then in the purple section is, maybe a summary or some things to review after class. So this is kind of segmented, and all of this is to help do 2 things. It's to help you learn the material on a deeper level, and it's also to organize the material so when you have to review it later, like I said, you don't have to go through the entire chapter. You can just go through your notes. Concept mapping, it's not something I've ever really been into, but some people are, and it works really well for them. And that's simply putting the main ideas in the center of the page and drawing a map similar to the one on the screen with other ideas and major concepts in the chapter. Again, you can use all blue ink, different colors. It's kind of, if you're a visual learner, I can see how concept mapping might be an effective tool for you. PowerPoint, I don't know. Maybe some of your instructors give you the PowerPoints in this type of structure, or maybe they upload it in PowerPoint online, and then you can print it out using the presentation style, which I think that's what this screenshot is. And then you can simply write the notes alongside the screens as your instructor is going through the different material. You can simply jot notes beside each slide, which is helpful because you have the visuals on the one side, the left side, and then the notes on the right. So I can see how that would be appealing and work for a lot of people. Okay, so now we're on to work. Cope with different instructional styles. We talked about this. Remember, this too shall pass. We've all had instructors that may be difficult to understand or are not necessarily the most gifted teachers, and know that it will pass, and you will at some point maybe get on to a better teacher. Ask questions about the material. We talked about that. Ask privately and politely for the instructor to alter material as presented if it's not being presented in a way that you understand. Pool your resources, meaning getting all your resources together, and talk with the instructor after class if you need some help. Find a balance between too many notes and too few. Yeah, like I said, if there's 30 pages of your textbook, you don't want to write out 30 pages of notes, and you also don't want to write out maybe half a page. You're going to strike a balance where you are making sure the key concepts are recorded, but not writing everything out in its entirety. Okay, evaluate. Think critically about your notes. Do my notes do a good job of representing the information that's covered in class? Do they reflect the emphasis of the instructor? Are there any key points that are not entirely clear? And do I need help clarifying any of the points that my instructor made? So those are some good questions that you can think critically about your notes once they are created. And the ultimate test is that did you perform well on the assessment that the notes you are taking were intended for, right? So if you continue to do well on those quizzes and on the tests, you know that the notes are as detailed as they need to be. Rethink. Review your notes shortly after class to activate your memory. Rethink as soon as possible. Make rethinking an active process and think critically about the notes. Yes, don't just simply scribble your notes down and forget about them. Make sure that you're visiting them over and over again for the material to sink in. Creating study notes. Here are some suggestions for creating study notes. Integrate your text notes into your study notes. This is if you have if your lecture is different than the textbook, you want to integrate both. Using flashcards is always good. Creating a separate glossary or a dictionary, kind of with definitions at the back if there's a lot of terms to learn in a course. And especially as you get into biology and anatomy and physiology, there's going to be a lot of new words there that I think these glossaries really help for. Keep your notes organized by the chapter they refer to, and take photocopies of the chapter summaries. Yeah, that would help, right? You just photocopy the chapter summary and you put it right in your notes. That's a good suggestion there. Okay, there's some going further stuff that you can jump into later on. We're not going to go any further here. We've covered what we need to cover. It is a relatively short chapter, pretty straightforward. Hopefully you found some of that information useful. If you have any questions, please, as always, do not hesitate to reach out and ask. Have yourself a great rest of the week.